I'm Katie Cowan, and this is the Creative Boom Podcast. Hello. For episode 87, our guest is Arthur Foliard, a creative director from Paris, currently based in New York City. Arthur's travelled the world since he accepted an internship at Landor Associates in San Francisco over a decade ago. He later moved to London and worked for Pentagram before joining moving brands for a couple of years, rising from junior to senior designer. In 2016, Arthur tried his hand at freelancing for under a year, but then was soon snapped up by London design agency Koto, joining as design director in 2017. He's still there today, but has recently moved to the Big Apple to head up its new studio there. Although Arthur predominantly works in graphic design, he is also renowned for his illustration work, often merging the two disciplines to deliver stunning identities for the likes of Backmarket, Meatable and Yubo. His illustration work, meanwhile, is instantly recognisable, often spotted on walls and billboards across London. In this episode, we talk about his adventures around the world and what home means to him when he's not in Paris, how all these other places where he's lived differ from one another, their various cultures and ways of doing business. He also shares how he found himself in San Francisco straight after college and how he coped with not being able to speak a word of English. We delve into his time at Koto and what it's like to be head of its new office in New York, which isn't even a year old. There's a bit of juicy insight into the studio's culture, how they might follow London's example, and how it looks after its people. And Arthur shares why he believes everyone should be together, collaborating and supporting one another in the same room. It's a warm and friendly chat with someone who clearly isn't afraid of the future and certainly doesn't dwell too much on the past, something many of us can learn from. Hi Arthur, it's lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Very happy to be here.
It's so nice to be speaking across the pond to New York. You've got up early and you've just told me that you've not had breakfast yet. This is disgraceful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a French thing actually saying that. I think French people are obsessed with breakfast. So I don't know where it comes from, but yeah, the Koto New York team is obsessed with breakfast. So I had to change the habit. And with DoorDash, Uber Eats, and all the delivery, people out there, it is getting quite crazy. Just before I joined this, they were talking about getting McDonald's for breakfast. So yeah,
oh, wow.
It is intense.
You're very spoilt there in New York as well. You've got so many amazing places to eat. If I worked there, I think I'd just end up being 3 stone overweight.
Well, yeah, that's a joke, but one of our designer that came from London has been here for 3 weeks and said he's already gained, I think, 2 stone or something in 3 weeks.
2 stone?
Yeah.
Good grief. What were they doing back in England?
I don't know. Yeah, I think, we were also in Williamsburg, which is literally in the middle of like everything. So it gets insane. And we're a small team as well. So it's much easier to collectively agree on something and go for it than when I was in London and it was 50 people.
Well, I was going to say, because you're only just getting started there, aren't you? I mean, how many are now at the New York office at Koto?
Working, so we have a few people remote, but working with us, we're about 8 people.
8 people, so that's dangerous territory when it comes to food.
Yeah, so I do remember Koto London when we were that size, and yeah, it was quite dangerous. So yeah, but it's amazing, this sort of vibe around the studio, and we go for lunch together, we go for dinner together. So it's like don't want to sound cheesy, but like a small family, really.
That's so exciting because you kind of you started a position at Koto 5 years ago. So you kind of what you're saying is you joined Koto in London when it was just like it is now for its New York office. I mean, That's exciting.
Yeah, we're trying to do the same thing in New York. So start small and then understand the milestones. So John Koto, we were 7, 8 people in a very small co-working space in South London. And at some point we realized that there was too many people in such a small space. So why don't we just actually try to find something a bit better, a bit bigger? But we had some interesting rules in terms of like who's doing the washing, who's cleaning the space, etc. And so we're actually trying to bring that back in New York because you don't want the same person to do it. But, the team has been great here, actually just doing it themselves. And so that's amazing to see. I feel they understand, the need to be together and to be one big team and, working towards this much bigger goal. But yeah, it also starts with the small details like this. Yeah,
you kind of have to sort of treat it like a family in these early growth phases because it's so intense and because the work, literally kind of piles in and you all have to sort of pull together. Are you finding that you're having to sort of sacrifice a little bit at this stage and sort of work late hours, or have you managed to find a balance?
I think, yeah, we do have a balance. I think it's the same way we work in London, where we're not going to work late for the sake of it, but we'll work late when we have to, when there's something that drives us, when there's, a presentation the next day or in 2 days, or, we want to do something different as well, something for the studio, something for someone else in the studio, whether it's like a member of the team or someone that's going to come in. But no, I mean, of course, you want to start with, the first 3, 4, 5 clients, and you want them to be an absolute smash. So you probably do work a bit harder. We do work really hard at Koto, but not unnecessary.
Yeah. And how do you take the culture from London and apply the same kind of thing to New York, or is that impossible to fully do?
Yeah, it's impossible, I'd say. And that's actually an advice I got, where it's like, you're not going to be able to bring the culture from London to New York. You gotta adapt to the people here. We see Americans are very different. British, the city is very different. The place we work out is very different from Williamsburg, or from Bermondsey to Williamsburg. So look, you gotta bring your idea of the culture. And I'm a big sort of culture person. I'm a big team player as well. So you got to do things together. As the team is first, Koto has to be first, and then you got to understand how people live and how people act as well. So yeah, in that way, actually, I kind of just step back and stand back in some ways, and I let people figure it out, and I just bring the goods if I can. But yeah, it's a good advice I got, because if I've done it myself, I would have been like, hey, we do the same thing, and it's London, but in New York, and it's actually not true.
Yeah, it's not. And not to fall back on stereotypes or anything, but do you find yourself being French and then sort of having kind of worked in London and then sort of back in America again, do you find those three clash? Are there big differences, or, am I sort of just assuming?
Yeah. The team, if they listen to this, they're going to have... The team in London always said that they question if I was actually French, because they're like, he doesn't like wine, he doesn't drink coffee, he's not like a breakfast person, but I like, pint of beer, I like a roast dinner and, whatever, a fry-up or something.
Sound more Yorkshire than French.
Yeah, well, I do. Yeah, there's some joke. There's some joke in the London studio about the accent and all, and saying that I've got the thickest French accent. But then when you go back to France, some people actually think, are you really French? Because you got a little sort of English accent on some of the words that you have.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like I'm not so French, I'm not so British, and I'm definitely not American yet. So it's like what I am.
What are you?
Yeah, exactly. But it's just have to go with the flow. So yeah, I'll bring a bit of Frenchness in everywhere I go, but to a limit.
You've travelled around a lot, Arthur. You started off a decade ago in San Francisco in the Bay Area, working for Landor. What was that like back then?
It was great. It was honestly amazing. I think, so the story is, I was at uni/college, now I have to use college here. And we had, I think, around 6 months where you could do an internship, and they allowed people to actually go abroad. So most of my friends decided to stay in Paris, which is fine. But I was like, come on, 6 months where you can go somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an opportunity to do something, and then it's fine. The school is good with it. And I was very naive, and I had no understanding of kind of like the world of branding. I think I was more into graphic design at the time. And I asked, at school and people I knew, what's the city and where I should go. And they were like, well, there's obviously a few places, but I think at the time, Landor, San Francisco, and London in general was pretty big, and they were like, if you go to San Francisco, is where it was created. Landor is going to be a good place for you. And the person actually said that was the Landor Paris, sort of not owner, but like director, a manager. And because they wanted me in anyway. And so they were like, well, maybe you go to San Francisco. I was like, okay, well, I'll just go to San Francisco. But the issue with that is I didn't speak English at all. Absolutely no English whatsoever.
Whoa.
But I have one of my dearest friends that is amazing at English because he lived in London when he was a kid anyway. So I got him on the case of writing all the emails for me, that introduction email, and they responded, and then he started to reply back to the point where I got the internship. There was an internship, went there for 6 months, but then I arrived and I had absolutely zero understanding of the surrounding anyway. And so when I arrived at Landor the first day, it was like in June, I remember, and they told me that a few months later, that they had some sort of like meeting with the team being like, is that the right guy? Because his English was so perfect on email, and now I can't even do like a sentence because like it was that bad that even asking for direction to breakfast or where's the hotel, because I was in a weird hotel in Chinatown, I couldn't do it. So they were like, did we make a mistake?
You liar,
absolute
Arthur
liar,
Foliard.
absolute liar. But after 3 to 4 months in London, when I started to pick that up, which is incredible, and what the brain do when you're in some sort of urgency mode.
Listen to you.
It can always be better. So yeah, but that was amazing. The world of branding, the world of obviously the US and San Francisco and everything around it, and learning a new language. It was like, as a little kid, again, learning how to, cycle and do all of this. So yeah, absolutely incredible.
It's amazing. And when you think you're trying to learn a new craft as well, learning a new language and putting yourself out of your comfort zone, that sense of adventure, I suppose, that you can have when you're a lot younger. You don't really sort of think about all the things that could go wrong because you don't really know about what could go wrong yet, I suppose.
Yeah, me also being even more basic than you would imagine. I was like, I'm not going to get an iPhone. I'm going to get this, flip-flop phone, this weird T-Mobile, shitty thing, that I have for 20 quid. And the problem is that you don't have GPS or anything like this. But because you can't speak English, then I remember the first few days, the first few weeks, I'd leave the hotel, and I swear to God it's true. I would be like, okay, so you've done 2 right, 1 left, 3 straight in terms of blocks. Remember this, because then you can't just go back to the hotel. And so that was literally just my life for a few weeks.
That's brilliant. And then you were there for a couple of months, and you somehow found yourself, instead of going back to Paris, you went to Pentagram in London. That must have been incredible. You must have still been learning how to speak English at that point as well.
Yes, completely. It was interesting because you go in San Francisco, there's a lot of people from, Japan and France and Germany. So the accent is a bit more sort of basic, or just a bit more kind of expected and easy to understand. And then you go to London, where I worked with people from, I don't know, Ireland, Dublin, or
or
Wales,
Yorkshire,
or Yorkshire, yeah. And some people would just talk to me and ask, where you've been or how long have you been here and stuff like that. And you're like, oh God! And I sorry, you don't understand anything, which is which is wild. And I think the culture is obviously very, very different. The weather is different, and what people eat is different, and the place I was living in and the place I was working at, Pentagram, is very different than Landor. So everything was insane, and you kind of don't really think about it when you go from a city that people speak English and it feels like it's the same kind of everywhere. Me again being basic, and then you go to London, it's like the complete polar opposite.
Yeah,
but that was amazing as well. It's just and like discovering a new culture and speaking to new people that have, you know, a different background and different past and that want different things from their life. For me, it was just, every day I was like, wow, you know, a lot of information. And I got very curious as well. I was like, maybe I need to work at different places and I need to talk to as many people as possible. Obviously, the English thing is a big thing as well. You know, I need to learn how to speak better and I need to, you know, learn all of that stuff. But wow, you know, and I do actually do that sometimes where I go, you know, grab some food with a friend and I'm like, you know, she's from, you know, Dublin or she's from Sydney and I'm from Paris and, you know, you live there and I live there and now we're together having like a Taiwanese in London. And I find just like mind blowing. And I do think about what my life would have been if I stayed in Paris, you know, and I don't think I would do the same thing. Of course, Paris is amazing and I have amazing friends and family, but wow, you know, thanks God I was a bit curious, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're very lucky in that you have all your family and friends in Paris, a fantastic city, a very creative city. So you could have just sort of taken that path, but instead decided to take this very difficult adventure that ended up paying in dividends, really. And do you ever get homesick?
Not really. I think when I go back for Christmas, you know, you look at Paris and obviously coming from, look, London was an amazing, beautiful city. But you go back to Paris, you're like, oh God, you know, this is such a gorgeous city. But that was it. You know, I think that's the thing with Paris, at least in branding, at least for now. And me, that's the only thing. It's a beautiful city, but it doesn't have the excitement of London or, you know, New York. There's always something new to do. There's always something new to try. And I like the competition as well. You know, if you don't stay focused, there'll always be someone else, you know, doing something better than you. And I think in Paris, there's obviously the story of the city, you know, it's all in the past, but it's not very much a, you know, future forward city. You know, it's not really thinking about what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. It's very much about the, like I said, the story really. So
it's fascinating, isn't it, that all these different cities around the world just have such a different sort of flavor, a different stance, and to be able to go and live and immerse yourself in each one, that's going to sort of present quite the experience. And, you know, in your, you know, adding to your box of tricks, I suppose, you're getting to understand and apply that kind of wisdom to the projects you're working on, the people you're working with. You know, it's such a rich experience. So I don't think you're not really missing out by sort of, even though I would personally love to live in Paris and have that opportunity, but it's just what we're sort of presented with, isn't it? And we always want more as humans, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I also think when you work in London, that's the chance. You work with clients from all over the world, and that's the same with your colleagues and friends. And I think you learn to be a bit more open as a person, because obviously, culturally speaking, you work with British people, you work with Australians, or you work with Koreans. It's so different, you know, the way they approach life, the way they approach the work. And I think it's great because you realize it's not just about you, you know, like people shouldn't just adapt to you. You should adapt to people, which is interesting. I don't think we're taught that at school that much, you know, definitely in Paris that, hey, you know, you will meet other people from other countries because French people work with French people. And that's kind of like, obviously, I'm, again, being basic, there's more than France around this, but it's going to be harder to work with Koreans, and it's going to be harder to work with Americans and so on. And so, yeah, working with all of these people at Koto, definitely, and obviously at Pentagram and moving brands, etc. Just, wow, it's insane, you know, and you hear incredible stories. I know it's kind of expected, but the idea of Christmas in Australia is insane. You know, when for me it's snow and it's roast dinner and the French roast dinner, and then some of our friends at Koto say, no, you go to the beach and then you have a barbecue.
You really do.
And I'm like, but no, it's not Christmas. And then they're like, yes, it is Christmas. You know, obviously as a joke. And they're like, it's I don't know, you know, it's not going to change your life to know this, but I love that, you know, and I love the little insights, and I get more and more here in terms of like Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of that stuff. And it's just, wow, it's so great. You do have stories to tell when you go back to Paris to the family.
Absolutely. You can have a barbecue, in London or New York. My dad does every year. They have a party where everybody has to go dressed in kind of, summer clothes, and he does a barbecue outside,
That's
in the freezing cold.
I love that. Nice.
I know, I do. It's but yeah, it's wonderful that we're part of this global community and we can sort of take these opportunities and work anywhere. And now you're in New York, wow. I mean, New York is such a contrast to London. Of the two, which do you prefer, or is it still too early to say?
Too early to say. I think I'm still in the honeymoon vibe period right now where everything is like, wow, oh my God. But it's funny how like you can get used to somewhere in a city. And I remember the first few weeks I cycled to work and then I would just look around and you can actually see Manhattan from my way to work in Brooklyn. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. And I actually realized for the last few weeks I don't even look at the view. And I'm like, oh, why? Why are you so basic? It's just like, calm down. It's hard. Yeah, I think I love it. I mean, I love it here, but London gave me everything, honestly, like just from, life and friends and work. And I've got obviously very attached to it. And I spent my 20s really in London. So some of the best years of my life. So yeah, I still have a little thing for London. We'll see. We'll have another conversation in 5 years and I'll tell you about it.
And you'll probably be in Sydney on the beach.
Probably, yeah, maybe. Why not? Exactly.
Why not? This is the exciting thing, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen next. And at the moment, you've been sort of leading and building the team at Koto there. You've been there since April, is that right?
Yeah, end of April, yeah, May.
So post-pandemic world, how was the pandemic for you? Did you kind of were you working remotely for Koto in London and just ploughing on and continuing?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Obviously it was hard for everyone else. But the thing I liked about it is I felt I became closer to everyone, more open, more empathic, more just aware of everything. And so we'd, check on friends and family, and you do a lot of, I know it sounds a bit grim now, but a lot of, Friday drinks, like on remote with everyone, and you do the same on Saturday and you do the same on Sunday. And and I like that you'd cook food for your, neighbors and other close friends. And I really like that. I do have a nice memory from it. Obviously, everything was terrible. And because at Koto itself, myself included, but at Koto, we love working together. We love this, studio vibe. It's kind of like culture. We definitely believe that the best work is done together. It has to be done together. And it's much easier to stand up and go around the desk and be like, hey, try this and try that. And, hey, let's go for a coffee then. Are you available for a Zoom? Okay, let me send the link. Okay, oh, she's connecting. He's connecting. And so all of that stuff is, I really, really miss this, and just being back in the studio, because we tried to go back to the studio when we were allowed. So like, let's go back. And then we had to go back home. And, it was complicated.
It was mind-blowing.
It was mind-blowing. And wow, I really miss this. And so here in New York, this is exactly what I'm trying to build. We need to be together, and even more at this size right now where it's critical that we are creating. And we don't really use the word culture that much. I could have funny. I've used it a lot, but it's like it feels very organic, right? I think a lot of people, when people talk about culture, it's like they don't have a culture. They need to define it and put a word on it. But I'm going to say it for the sake of, explaining.
Yeah.
And I think you need people to be together. You need to create, the small moments. We need to be together on this journey. And that's what I'm trying to create. And obviously it comes from all these years at Koto and also at other studios where, I was in the studio and you talk to someone and someone talks to you. But I think with the pandemic, I was like, definitely, it makes things so much easier. And so that's what we're aiming for. Of course, I know it's a crazy world right now, and some people have never worked in a studio, young designers and young students, and so we're trying to be very open-minded about it. It's like, hey, come for 2 days, come for 3 days. And you know what, when we do that, after 1 day or 2 days, they're like, I'll come every day, because they realize the value of being together.
Yeah, that is so crazy. I didn't even consider that there would actually be, kids coming out of university or school and having never worked or never had the opportunity until now to work. So that's insane when you think about it.
No, they spent a few years remote also at college, in uni. And so a lot of the work that I do and with the rest of the team is to teach the value of being together and also teach the value of being a team player. And I was, exactly the same. When you go to uni and college, I think the whole story is just about you, me, my grade, my project, my this and this. And they don't teach you how to be ready for life, in the professional life in a studio. And you want to teach people that, look, it's about everything but you. It's about the company you work with or for, and then it's the clients and it's the people you work with. So, yeah, we have 2 very great young designers right now that just left uni/again college, and we sit down together talking about this and why it's great to be together. And they love being in the studio, by the way, but I think there's a lot of work to do in that instance.
It's been such a crazy couple of years, and now with everything that's happening, I don't know what the sort of feeling's like over in New York, but there's all sorts of things politically happening back here in the UK, and there's quite a few people who are suffering out there. I mean, how do you keep yourself and the team upbeat and positive, because the work's still coming in, there's still lots of opportunities that are happening, but sometimes when you look at the news, you can sort of think, oh gosh, there's a lot to worry about. Yeah,
it is. I don't think we're that affected at Koto, which is interesting. And it's a big gap here, but I think that when you're at work, and the work we do is an amazing work. I love what I do, and I think the team absolutely love it. And so we try to have as much fun as possible. And all the worry that we have in terms of like personal life and all of this stuff, we try to keep it out of Koto, but then we also try to have a space where we can talk about it. So we do have lot of like one-to-one where we just go for a coffee or beer or something, and we're like, let's just chat, and there's nothing formal about it. It's like, tell me what's going on with your life. But personally, I try to find as much time as possible in my day to do this. And this is why I keep telling the team, is that it doesn't matter if I've got a crazy schedule or I'm, course after course, I'll just move something, because for me, the most important thing is the people, and we spend hours, days, weeks, months, and so on together. You got to feel comfortable in that space. You got to feel comfortable. Of course, we can joke. Of course, we can be silly, and we can do all of that great stuff, because I do think we need to be in a good mood to do good creative. But also, you need to feel comfortable with the people. You need to feel like if something doesn't go right, or if you feel scared or worried about something or whatever it is, these people are going to be here for you. And in some ways, it's what represent a good family.
Yeah, it's a family. And how much, as a creative director, do you, what does your role involve these days? I mean, how much of it involves people management, actually, as opposed to getting stuck into the creative, Is it just a sort of case of spinning lots of plates?
Yeah. It's been very interesting here. I love it. I think it's great, but you realize it's so funny we're spoiled kids, when you work at Koto in London, because you've got snacks in the cupboard and you got your desk cleaned every day, and you got, all of that stuff is sorted. But then you come to London, it's like, who's going to do it? And if I don't do it, if I don't, buy pen, pencil, notebooks, snacks, and all of this. So you need to be quite on it. You need to think about the details. You need to think about all of that. So, of course, a lot of creative direction is still my job, but there's another layer on top of it. But once again, I think I've started to do it more and more and more. And at some point, it was like a full-time thing. And then now I've got more and more people, and they help so much. They will do this, and they will suggest, getting this. And so that's great, because now it feels more like organic. I'll do it, he does it, she does it, and something. But of course, my expertise is more design than what snack we should get, but I love this. And again, it reminds me of Koto London when we just started. You got to start with this actually to get to the Koto London size where everything is sorted. You have to show people, or they have to understand this idea of milestones, how you grow slowly and slowly. And a nice story I've been telling a lot of people is we started in WeWork in a very, very small space, a tiny space, kind of weird, very long corridor, and we're just all stuck together. And the day we moved to a bigger space, kind of like corner space, which is beautiful, that could have, so having like 5 people, we could actually now have, 10. People were so, crazy that they were just like, oh my God, this is it. We made it. That's amazing. And so,
it's exciting.
So you have to go through this. And I love that. It feels like a small startup in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose that, in New York, with it being, completely different world, you kind of like almost have to start again, but you've got the bonus of having the reputation of Koto, which is done so well in Europe.
Yeah, and that's also one of the reasons we're here. There's obviously, when you think about New York, the startup hub is insane, incredible companies. But we've been very successful in London, and the Berlin office is doing so well as well. And those 2 studios work incredibly, again, well together. And LA has been skyrocketing for the past 4 years. Obviously, being on the West Coast is great. But New York is a different beast, I think, in terms of competition. The studios are here, and I think that's the thing with the US. You're not just competing against studios; you're also competing against the big guys, the Google, the Apple, the Spotify, etc. Which is, I know we have them in London, but here it's like different, different scale for sure. And I think as a studio, we're like, this is the one. We need to go there. We can do it, and we're not going to so much look at what other people are doing. I mean, it's mind-blowing, and I love actually just being around this because you get inspired, and, I'm very ambitious, and so I'm like, it's pushing me to be more ambitious. But also, we want to be Koto. We want to be different. We want to do things our own way. And I think that's the best way to be different and to attract people. And that's what we do with clients. We'll always push people to be distinctive. We push people to have their own personality and own voice. So we're coming here and we're going to be Koto. And we're not going to look around and be like, we want to be this or we want to be that. And so I think that's I think a good feeling for me because we're building something that feels true to us.
That's wisdom that can be shared with anyone, really. I mean, the minute we start looking at what the competition's doing, we can pretty much give up because if you worry about where they're at and compared to where you're at, it's going to be fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, but it's good to know what they're doing because same with clients, you need to understand what they're doing to be different. And so, but it was the right move. It was the right time, and you can see the rest of Koto globally is very excited about this.
Yeah.
It feels like I said, like a different beast, and I'm ready. I'm ready
You're
to battle.
ready to fight.
Exactly.
I've heard that New York is like a little village. It's smaller than you would even expect. But you eventually, if you're there for like 6 to 12 months, you'll eventually know pretty much everyone. I mean, that blows my mind that somewhere seemingly so big could have such a sort of, intimate creative community. Is that true?
From what I've seen, yeah, which is pretty insane. But it's a bit the same in London. I'd say, you've got, the same people going around, places, and you hear the same names and so on and so on. But you don't really expect that in New York. That's true. But my knowledge of New York is obviously very low right now. So, but from what I see, I see patterns I've seen in London, and it's the same here. But why not? Why not? I think at least it's making things a bit more interesting in some ways. Okay, I understand what's going on, and I know where people are working. I know what people are interested in, and it's the same with clients as well. So, I agree. Quite interesting.
Now you sort of do design as well as illustration. I mean, are you still sort of putting both those disciplines to good use? Because your illustration work is very distinctive, and you obviously bring the two disciplines together.
I do less and less illustrations, actually, because it's funny, a lot of people ask me about illustration, but I've always seen my illustration as sort of like a personal thing. I know I'm sharing them, but more like a place where I can just doodle and just have fun. And actually, most of the, I say I don't do illustration, but most of the time I do some like doodles on Post-its. So we do have a stack of like hundreds of Post-its at Koto. But it's funny because the work that we do at Koto and the work we I do in branding is always based on ideas and problem solving and something smart. I never really did this with the illustrations. I think for me it was just like an interesting way to express myself, to do some silly little animals or people or whatever, fancies. But I never, I had the opportunity to bring some illustration into some project that felt right. But I like having both sort of separated. I don't see, maybe I'll change my mind in the future, but I don't see myself just doing illustration and, having clients and doing that. I love even see talking about just chill, just do some doodles, have some fun, and that's it. But I think what is obviously teaching me is you can't just mix up everything. There's some things that you love and there's some things that you do on the side, and it's fine to have those two things separated.
Definitely. It's the problem solving that you enjoy in your work, and the kind of helping brands to kind of be their best, put their best foot forward. And
and it goes back to the story that it's not about me. I think if I was trying too much around my illustration would be like, okay, fine, but what are you trying to solve using this style of illustration? And like I said, we had it once where it was like, oh yeah, it makes sense for this. And but other than that, I think also my illustrations, unless we're doing like a children book, it's not going to be that useful. I'm joking, but I like having this little space for myself on the side.
I'm going to throw a question at you now that we're all thinking about. It's becoming increasingly prevalent in our lives. What are your thoughts on AI, particularly kind of tools like DALL-E, where you can create these, you can just basically type in a prompt and this computer will generate images that in many cases, if you type in the right prompt, it can be incredible. Yeah,
I find it fascinating. I think it's great. I think it's the way you use tools again. I think if people just rely on it to be creative and to do work, I mean, fair play to them. That's not how it works. But if it's a tool that helps you think, beyond what you're thinking right now, you're trying to figure out, other references to, I don't know how people use it. I think it's great. I'm sure people were doing the same thing, and I don't remember when the iPad came out. And it's like, what, like drawing on, like a digital thing and on a tablet? No, you need to have your brushes. Look, every time there's going to be something new, people will be skeptic, about it. And so I've got absolutely no problem about it. I do think, though, with tools like this, and it could be the same. We talked about this so much at Koto with like Pinterest or like Arena, etc. It's just the way you use it, right? If you rely on Pinterest or Arena or all of this to have ideas or have reference, well, that's the problem, because what you're doing is using references that people have already created. Yeah. And so that's bad, because you don't want just to be a copycat. You need to be inspired differently. You need to look at art. You need to look at movies. You need to look at books and so on. And for me, the DALL-E or DALL-E and whatever, the other ones are going to be is exactly the same thing. Yeah. But what's interesting is we worked on a project not so long ago, and we're trying to figure out a ref, and we're working with this sort of digital brand for dentists, digital platform, and we're trying to figure out how this illustration style that was never ever done for dentists could be actually used if we were just using this illustrator, if we were doing it in-house. And so we started to use this brand and use like different keywords based on what we were trying to do in the style of like David Hockney or Picasso, or like just really unexpected things. Like imagine dentist and David Hockney, or like dentist and Picasso, and it was amazing. It was just mind blowing to see how this thing would just actually create something from scratch. And that was amazing because it's hard to figure it out, right? You've never ever seen this. It's never been portrayed and pictured in art or in a book. So, I mean, that's amazing. And so I love the use of that because it actually opened doors to more. And we actually started doodling, by ourselves on an iPad. And so, the use of this is good. But of course, people are always going to reject, innovation. And so that's...
Well, I think they might be worried. They might be worried their jobs are at risk. But do you think that's the case, or do you think...
No, I don't think so. I mean, people thought their job were at risk when Fiverr was launched, the marketplace for freelancers, and we had a lot of shit actually.
Which you were behind, weren't you? You were behind the branding for that.
Yeah. And no, I think I don't think people's jobs are at risk, really. I think you'll always need it's the way you use the tech and how you need to bring your expertise into this. Even if you're creating 6 beautiful dolly generated images, look, if you're no one behind, like you don't understand how it works, you don't understand to use shapes, colors, and what it's also doing for your overall story, well, it's useless. So I think we're safe.
I think so, and I think it might be something that designers, illustrators might use in future to prompt, and they might use it as part of a sort of wider project, like you say, just for research or maybe even to help with backgrounds. I mean, when you look at the kind of if the metaverse is ever to come about, the amount of work that would be involved in building that's where I can see AI being particularly helpful, because of the amount of imagery that has to be produced for the metaverse. That's where I can see it adding value. But I think it'll just be a kind of thing that, like you say, is used as a tool. But can you imagine there'll be like a specific job role, like prompt engineer?
It could be. I actually haven't thought of this. Yeah, why not? I think I'm not worried about it. I think it's actually amazing. Exciting. I mean, innovation, of course, there's a limit to it, but innovation has brought so much stuff into our lives. Like, I mean, if people are complaining about this, why do you use Google or Wikipedia? Just, open a dictionary and look, so I think if it's helping you get to an answer, and if it's just facilitating, whatever you're trying to do, I think that's amazing.
It is good, yeah.
Yeah, like so. Why are you using phones and watch? Just like you get your GPS, proper GPS out and in whatever your clock, and don't use it. I think it's just innovation is amazing. I think it's again how you use it.
We're in a very exciting era, and it's going to be incredible seeing what happens in the next decade, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny actually you said that, because even the way I was working, I've started to work 10 years ago, is quite different from what's going on now. Look how many things have happened since 2012. And
oh my goodness.
And we'll still have a job. We're still doing what we love. And actually, I think we're doing a better job than we were doing 10 years ago. And there's obviously, again, a limit to that. Is things that we were doing better 10 years ago and things we're doing much better today. But wow, I'm so happy all of this happened. And I'm sure in 10 years, I'll be like, oh my God. Like the small example, I know there was a trend or big debate around this, but like Figma, how insane and how amazing. That's what we ever wished for in terms of creative. We can work together, we can have the client, we can build all of that stuff. We feel like one big team. And what about Slack? And what about, like this, what we're doing right now with like,
I know, it's incredible.
That's great. And thanks God we had innovation in tech during COVID, because, playing these silly games and doing these Zooms and doing that. But I know a lot of people were just against it, when it started. But I mean, thanks God.
I know there's been a few silver linings from the pandemic, hasn't there? Because it's actually made remote working possible, really viable. It's made, it's encouraged 4-hour work weeks, if somebody needs to work from home, there's the flexibility now. There's it proved that people could actually still working from home. That's surely an amazing thing.
Exactly. And if, some people love this and they want to be remote, fair play. That's great. At least they have the option to do it right now.
Yes.
And some people like myself love to be in the studio, but at least you have the choice. And I think it's amazing that we, if we live in a world where people can actually decide where they work.
I can totally tell you love being around people and love being in the office. I mean, how would your colleagues describe you?
Oh my God, I don't know. Should we ask them? No, they're not here. But I think I'm a good listener. I think if there's one thing, I think that's the one. Like I said, I'll always try to find time for people, and it's not just like a me thing. I think it's something I was taught by the team at Koto. The founders are insane at this. They always find it's interesting when you think about it. You're like the founders of like 100 people company, and they'll always have time for people. They'll
That's
always
great.
have like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, a breakfast, lunch, and even dinner, a weekend, and something. And that's amazing to know that you work somewhere and like you can talk to people. And I think that's like so beautiful, and you feel empowered, and you kind of like embrace this. And so everyone at Koto is a bit more like this. Well, if there's an issue, actually, we'll just like call it out right away. And whether we go for a coffee or we do it in like a meeting room, we'll just like chat.
That's
and I
great.
love this. And for me, so it's something I'm trying to bring because I think it's part of the DNA of Koto. But it's also something that we do with clients. Like this collaborative thing is at the core of everything that we do. I know you probably have heard a lot of that, but it goes beyond just having the same Slack channel. We'll, share opinion when we have to. We'll listen to them when they're worried about something, and even if it's not related to Koto, we see some news about investment, or we need. Hey, let's jump on a call. Let's just chat about this. Like, hey, how's it going? And it's the same with feedback. At the end of the day, I'm quite lucky that most of the time presentation go well, but we're not perfect, and it's not about also being perfect. It's like, look, we're just together. This didn't go well. Why don't we just do it together? Why don't we just try to crack it? Why don't we just jump into Figma and we catch up tomorrow? And so we're super open-minded and open to conversations and make sure that people feel part of the journey as much as we feel part of theirs. So yeah, it's everything to me. So I'm trying to bring that.
That's great. And that culture just seems to have, you were sort of saying culture is a difficult thing to copy, but I think that's kind of like the core that I'm getting from you of Koto, is that you're just very much about collaboration and that honesty, and sort of maybe pushing aside the ego to focus on the kind of end goal, which is to obviously do something wonderful together and make the client a success and make you a success.
Yeah, and what we do in New York is, of course, the client is the priority, but it's just like we try to have fun together. We try when we're, maybe we have an hour here. We have done that in the past where we come a bit early and we're just going to do things we talked about, like silly little internal videos or a stupid poster or whatever. Just try to enjoy the time that we have together. And at the end of the day, when you think about what we're doing, we're getting paid to do design, and whether it's logo, like the whole brand identity and strategy, it's wow, I'm so lucky, and we're so lucky to do this. And so I'm trying to push the team to realize this. Of course, we have bad days. Of course, sometimes you're like, oh my God, but damn, I mean, it's so good, isn't it? Like, we look at the studio, and like, we're in Williamsburg, in the middle of New York.
Beautiful.
We're getting paid to do this, and as much as and that's the thing we repeat to a lot of people, we don't take ourselves seriously, because at the end of the day, we're just making logos. You're not curing cancer. Like, so we have this thing where it's like, calm down, just don't take it too personally. But we do take the work very seriously. We take the work when. We work with New York X, that is obviously revolutionizing the way women use birth control, which is obviously a big thing, or PrEP in general. Or when we work with even like Plum, or like all of these people that are trying to do good, and we work with the Meatable Foundation as well, pro bono, that is working to help awareness around disability and diversity in general. Wow, I take that super seriously. We are trying to help people that are in businesses that are actually trying to help people for good, whether it's, a few thousand people. I mean, that I'm like, okay, we need to work hard, we need to do this, and we're going to make it as fucking good as possible. But
your English is very good.
Exactly, the F word. But on the other hand, it's the no ego thing. It's like, dude, you're just doing color palettes, logo, and so you're not revolutionizing, this and this. So that's the vibe we're trying to bring in the studio. Where yes, of course, we're going to work X amount of hours, and of course, we're going to do maybe a late night here and there. But on the other side, if we're inspired creatively to do something else for, Koto itself, or for, helping a friend that is in need of, like some pro bono work, we'll just do it. And we'll literally just get like everyone for a few hours on a Friday or after work on a Wednesday, and we'll just do it. And we'll, grab some food and maybe have a drink after if we want to. But I think you have to be creative in a different way. You don't have to stick to the 9 to 5. It's like, it's the only thing I have to do.
Yeah. It sounds wonderful. Can I come and work there?
We have a spot if you want. We have a big studio now, so you can definitely come.
You've got that big corner office overlooking Williamsburg, and everything's going really well. And how does it feel to be personally in New York? Do you feel like sometimes you're in a kind of, romanticized indie movie, just sort of skipping around, especially this time of year with all the leaves turning orange and red?
Yeah, I do think like this. And actually, I think we live in a little bit of a bubble because life is good, and so actually what we're trying to do, like I said a second ago, what we're trying to do is do pro bono work, or we're trying more and more to work with that charity. And we're obviously Koto is part of like 1% for the Planet as well, where we give, like money away, or we actually do some work pro bono. And so just being like, okay, well, we have a good life, that's great, but why don't we just try to be a bit more helpful for, the environment or social injustice or all of this. So it's something that we do really well in other studios. I actually had a chat the other day with some members of the team in New York, and I was like, we need to do something. And I think this can't come from leadership. It has to be a team decision. Is it something that we do in Brooklyn only? Is it something that we do, Williamsburg? Is it something we do, around Brooklyn? Is it something in New York? Does it have to be New York? Can it be something else? I do care about it. And I know the team with me really, really cares about that. So yeah, I know we were joking about this a bit, but I mean, it's amazing. Of course, it's great. And wow, you're in New York and it's beautiful, but also, there's some people struggling, and not just because of
there
COVID.
Really are.
So we're working really hard on this, but we want to make it right. And I think if we commit, it can't just be a little PR thing. I don't even know if we're going to talk about this, because we never really talk about this kind of stuff. I think we just do the thing, and then, we don't do that for praise and, clap and so on. So I think we'll find something great here, and we'll do some good.
Well, it's a great way to get in with the local community and to feel more at home and to understand the city more. So
yeah, and I love this. I love this idea. I live here in Brooklyn, and so I need to understand the community. I need to understand how people work, and when I say and it's definitely the same with my colleagues and the team at Koto. They're doing exactly the same thing, and it's, a lot of people actually do a lot of that on the weekend. And they don't really talk about this because, again, you don't do that for, your little ego. Sorry.
It's okay. You've got a bit of a cough there. I keep seeing you waving your hand around, and you have a little tattoo there. What does that mean? What's that mean to you?
Well, it's funny, with the tattoo story, again, I just wanted to do things that matter to me. They're related to actually my time in San Francisco. I've got things with my family. I've got things based on my personal life. I'm not doing anything based on style and, I love this and I want to do like this person or this person. They're a bit random when you just look at them, but they mean something to me. And so, that's what matters. And so you see that sort of common, threads that goes through my life, which is I love this tattoo. I love this. It's good to be inspired differently, but at the end of the day, I just need to do what's right for me.
All these lovely chapters that have sort of, been before you, and with so many more to come. I just feel like, you have only really just begun your adventure, Arthur. And I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's nice.
it would be so interesting to see where you are in 10 years' time and what you're doing or where you're living.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's so. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't have an answer. It's so funny because I actually think a lot of people think too much about tomorrow, but in a way that they're not thinking too much about the future, and they make decisions. You're like, but look, think about yourself in 5 years. Like, why did you do this? And you need to, but I don't really think about the future. I don't really think about me in 5 years, or I don't really think about me in 10 years. But yeah, so it's hard to know where I'm going to be and what I'm going to do. And it's, part of life. You got to go with the flow, and everything is an experience. But yeah, I do actually sometimes think about myself when I'm going to be 60 or, 70, and what life is going to be, and what I would be doing, and,
whether we have robots at home.
Yeah, I say that, and then I'll be replaced by the Dolly thing in 3 weeks because it's
your job's. I'm sorry, it's over.
I came here and people are like, "Are you going to stay forever in New York?" And I'm like, I mean, if I move somewhere, I guess, in reality, yes, of course, I'm going to commit, I'm going to stay. But I said the same thing about London, and I thought the same thing about San Francisco. I don't think I would just go somewhere and be like, I'm just going to stay a year and a half and then go back. But who knows? Maybe in 3 years or 5 years, I'll go to Canada or Mexico or go back to Paris. I don't know, but we'll see.
Well, that's so exciting, and thank you so much, Arthur, for joining us today and telling us about your adventures so far, and all the reassuring kind of nuggets of wisdom along the way.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to think about the past actually a bit. I'm trying not to get too stuck in the past, because the past is done, and if you fucked up or you did something that you regretted, then that's done, and there's no point just thinking about it. You should actually think about how you're gonna not do it again in the future, or how you could fix it in the future. But talking about San Francisco and the beginning of London, even obviously the beginning of Koto, that was so important to me, is good. I'm gonna have a good day, I think.
That's great. And I'm going to go away remembering to sort of stay in the present and not worry about the past or the future.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that together.
To discover more about Arthur Foliard, you can find everything you need via the show notes at creativeboom.com/podcast. That's where you can also hit subscribe and see our entire archive of episodes so far, including chats with Marina Willer of Pentagram, Gail Anderson, Oliver Jeffers, Muragaya, and Morag Mayaskov. Next time, we'll chat with Louise Sandhouse, an American graphic designer and a co-founder of the People's Graphic Design Archive. See you then.